Unless the NPPF recognises the intrinsic value of the whole countryside, not just its special areas, we fear a rash of sporadic and inappropriate development across the country, disfiguring the local landscape, which is so valued by local communities.
I certainly don't support the Gatwick takeaway, I call it, because it's being driven by a group of speculators, some from overseas, who will make quite a big killing, and they will probably avoid quite a lot of tax in the process. But what they will not do is to fund the infrastructure. We will be left, if it goes ahead, with traffic congestion, with pollution, including noise, and to pick up a big tab for allowing these speculators to make profit.
If you do not expand Gatwick, then that will have a direct economic effect on this area. You've got to consider the jobs that will be created in Gatwick. You've got to consider the inward investment that will go into Gatwick, and you have got to consider the reverse of that if you do not actually allow it to happen. I know, because a lot of my business is in the Middle East, that if Gatwick did not have an additional runway, it is likely that a lot of the Gulf lines would transfer to Heathrow. Right. That would mean, that's fine, that's fine, but you've got to remember how much income this country attracts from doing business with the Middle East. And the business that would go through, currently goes through Gatwick, actually would go through one of the other airports in France or Germany.
We should be conserving the area. I mean, the demolition of a whole village for a runway is absolutely ridiculous. It's just not acceptable, and the alternatives around managing Gatwick differently in terms of its flight management plans enables the capacity to increase, if necessary, the number of flights appropriately and avoid the argument for a second runway.
It would be very easy for anyone standing here as a prospective MP to say that they do not support the airport. After all, if Gatwick should be recommended for a second runway, there are 649 other MPs who could vote in favour, so it would be possible to say, not me, Gav. But why would you do that? An MP's primary concern has to be that the constituency has a healthy economy. Keeping people in good quality, well-paid jobs has to be a priority. And Gatwick is a prime driver of our economy. Directly and indirectly, many people in this area benefit from employment as a result of the airport. Our MP needs to recognise this and work with organisations such as the Gatwick Diamond Initiative and the Coaster Capital LEP to do the best for our economy. The worst thing that could happen will be for the government to fudge the issue yet again and make no decision. Air travel is here to stay. We can't put the genie back in the bottle, and nobody has suggested ways that we could stop people from flying. We all want to go abroad for our holidays, for business, to visit our family and friends. What we have to do is be pragmatic and to make sure that we protect as much of our rural areas as we can, and to do that, our MP needs to be there at the table, taking part in the debate.
I'm completely opposed to a second runway at Gatwick, and I will campaign against it. We're an area, we're blessed with low unemployment, happily. There's no such thing as an acceptable rate of unemployment, but happily we've got low unemployment in this area. We've got, as we've been discussing all this morning, intense demands on local housing, and it's an area with increasing congestion. This is just the wrong place for a second runway, and I will completely oppose it.
So I oppose utterly a second runway at Gatwick. My greatest fear, of course, is housing. The estimate is a requirement of some 14,000 plus houses over and above what is already required of us. And I wonder if Liberty Trust have actually thought about the effect of aircraft noise on what is likely to be 2,500 unwanted houses north of Horsham.
So no, I'm not in favour. But I'm also not in favour of airport expansion at Heathrow. I'm not in favour of a Boris Island, of any of these things. Because fundamentally, and again for me, I'm going to kind of reiterate what I said earlier, it comes down to the fact that climate change is a massive problem and we have to deal with it quickly. Aviation is a large contributor to that, and anything we do that's heading us in the wrong direction is just a bad idea.
The A27 is an important road for the economy of this county. It needs to be improved, it needs to be upgraded. We need to make a balancing act between sometimes the damage that we do to the environment and the improvements that we can make for the economy and everybody else's way of life. I don't think that it's much of a high price to pay to upgrade one single road, the A27. I'm with you that I don't want to see mass road building across the South Downs National Park, but I believe the A27 improvement is absolutely vital for the well-being of this county.
So I think there are three basic options. One of them actually would involve installing a tunnel, building a tunnel, to avoid damaging the environment to the same extent as the others. I think we need to put a value on greenfield land. We need to put a value on it in terms of its agricultural context, in terms of the environment, the biodiversity, and I believe that we ought to be able to justify expenditure on an option which reduces the impact on our green land.
Often when you see the roads that have been widened and developed, more traffic uses it, and it actually makes no difference at all. There are things called trains, and there is a very good train line in that area, and we need to be developing the train lines from the south coast into cities. There is huge debate about building fast lines from London to the north. Very little debate about improving the south coast to London, as though no one goes to London from the south coast. They are the other options. They are a bit more difficult, they're not as easy, but if you allow one of these roads to go through a national park, you have a precedence for every other one.
I do wonder that if you have a national park and then you ignore the rules around whether you can develop in it, then what's the point of having the national park? If we can work on our other forms of transport, our other infrastructure, then I would hope that we can alleviate that pressure without having to drive a new road through.
Beeching took up many railway lines in the 1960s, and many, if not all of them, should be re-established to promote train use in favour of car use and freight transport as well. And to plaster the countryside, especially areas like has been suggested with more and more roads, is just it's not necessary.
I'm not as up to speed on it as I'd like before making a statement and a commitment, so I apologise for that. But if you're right in saying that Nick is supportive of it, I know how strongly he believes in the countryside. He would not do that without very, very good reason.
Right, but CPRE Sussex's view, and we've been involved in this, is that we think that by some improvements on junctions that we can avoid major trunk developments on the A27. And in some areas where, particularly when we look at, when we move from Lewis towards Polegate, the view from the Downs is absolutely crucial, otherwise we have motorways going through the countryside unnecessarily.